This is the Homeschool Show from North Carolinians for Home Education. Our goal is to John, you're supposed to be helping me.
Already. This is
our goal is to help you homeschool with confidence and joy. And now, John's in the studio laughing at me.
And we're gonna have some feedback from last week.
That's right, feedback.
All right. Well, Matthew, why don't you tell us what we're doing? No, I'm just kidding. We're going to talk about today the Homeschool Conversations segment. We're going to have that again. We're going to listen to a conversation that Matthew had with Jonathan Brush, the president and CEO of Unbound. That's a pretty cool organization. And then we're also going to be looking at our homeschool tip of the week. We're going to continue with our discussion from last week about when deciding about home education, take the time to do your research and get all your questions answered. And then we're going to talk about some of those common questions and continue where we left off last time. And at the end of the show, you're going to get a special treat. You're going to get to take a look at a trailer for the brand new documentary called Schoolhouse Rocked: The Homeschool Revolution. So today we're going to start off with Homeschool Conversations, Matthew, and Jonathan Brush is the president and CEO of Unbound. It's a homeschool. He's a homeschool graduate and a homeschool dad of 6. So he beat me by 1,
okay,
but he didn't beat you.
No.
And Matthew sat down with Jonathan at the Leaders Conference hosted by the HSLDA recently. So we're going to take a look at that segment with Matthew and Jonathan, and we'll be right back.
Tell me about Unbound and what you're doing.
Yeah, so Unbound is a project-based education system, and it's a higher education system, so students can earn a degree with us if that's what they want, and about 70% of the students in our program do. But most importantly, they earn a certification, and that certification is based on them learning how to do real life stuff. That's the project-based aspect of it. And so we teach students time management, task management, and then most importantly, relational skills and leadership skills that then are transferable to any job, any place. And so it's the kind of real life training that you actually need to use in education. So yeah, we can help you get an education degree, but more importantly, to give you the tools to actualize the education.
Education degree?
So we can help you get a degree.
Got it.
But we give you the tools to actualize the education.
Got it.
To actually make your education work for you.
And what does this have to do with homeschooling?
Well, homeschoolers are the ones that are most likely to be interested in what we do, so
Okay.
that helps a lot. And so the majority of our students are definitely homeschoolers. But it also comes with that homeschooling attitude, which is the primary thing here is not so much a series of content or sort of boxes to fill and say, okay, now you're educated, but more a system that says, if you do this system well, you'll end up learning how to learn. And most importantly, our kind of end result is, are you able to quickly and effectively master complicated information? And if you're able to do that, which is a fancy way of saying you're able to learn yourself, you're able to teach yourself, then that's transferable to everything. And that gives you a significant advantage no matter what you're doing, professionally, but also in your life.
So why is this kind of approach important versus traditional college and things like that?
So I think that people miss the fact that there's been a fundamental change in education, right? We talk about change in a lot of things, but it doesn't take much to illustrate this. If we just back up a little bit and say, hey, what happened 30 years ago, right? When you had to have a lot of stuff in your head, and that was a major advantage. Because if you didn't have it in your head, then to get it in your head was expensive. You had to drive to the library, you had to pull the card catalog, find the card, get the book, find the resource, read the information, take notes, catalog those notes, or memorize those notes so you could use that information later. And if you forgot, you had to repeat that process. Well, of course, that's not the same now, right? I mean, now you just pull out your phone and you get any kind of information you want. So you have to have an education that allows you to have the context for that, but more importantly, you have to have the tools to use that kind of situation, right? So that's the world we live in now. So we used to be in an answers-based educational world, right? Who knew the most answers won? We're now in a questions-based world. Who can ask the questions that help you make sense of the unlimited information that you have? And how can you sort through that and apply it to the particular problem you have? Technology constantly disrupts. Disruptions cause problems. Whoever solves the problems the fastest tends to have the advantage. So your ability to quickly and effectively master complicated information and your ability to ask the questions that allow you to do that determine your ability to make an impact in the world. That's the educational revolution that has happened that most people don't quite realize. So, answers-based systems based on grades and college credits and all those kinds of things tend to still be operating on the old knowledge paradigm, not the reality that we currently exist in.
So does that affect your personal homeschooling approach?
Yes, and I think for homeschoolers, whether you have anything to do with Unbound or you do something totally different for higher education or don't do any higher education, I would want to have this message, which is, anytime you're feeling overwhelmed, anytime you're not sure what to do, if you're new to this whole homeschooling thing, you're like, I've got to go through all this stuff, if you can come back to these two principles, are you kind of helping your child to think of as a questions-based education? Are you teaching your child how to ask good questions? And are you instilling them the skills that they need to quickly and effectively master complicated information? Now, you're probably doing that by teaching things like algebra and history and all those things, but here's the piece that you have to listen carefully on. At the end of the day, it won't matter as much if your child knows everything they need to know about algebra. It will matter if they used algebra as the foil to learn how to learn new things. And it won't matter as much if your child knows everything they're supposed to know about history. It will matter that they have learned through history how to ask good questions and be able to find those answers. And if you do that, you'll have equipped your child to be able to effectively navigate the world. But that is also something people like to do, so you will probably have given them an appetite to continue to do that. And that ends up being the differentiating factor, right? That ends up being more important than some specific spelling curriculum or writing curriculum or math curriculum or having a certain box checked of having put this knowledge in somebody's head. Your job is not to take all the stuff in your head and put it in your child's head. Your job is to teach your child to want to put something in their own head.
And so in the homeschool, that includes discussion or research or other things? In other words, what practical ways would you say, instead of giving the kid the history book and say, read this and answer the questions in the back?
Right.
Which may not produce a question-based.
Yeah, so two things to think about here. The first would be this. It makes a big difference if you know where you're going versus if you don't. So let me use a quick example. Let's say you're stocking shelves at Walmart, right? Most people think that's kind of a boring job. And if you're just doing that and you have no idea what comes next, pretty soon you start to kind of hate life and hate your job. But let's say you have a dream to build a boat and sail around the world. And every time you complete your shift at Walmart, you put a little bit more money in the boat building fund and the sailing education fund, right? And you know that every time I'm getting a little closer to doing something totally different. That changes everything, right? So the first thing is just that attitude, and that sounds too simple to be true, right? But if you know that your job is not to put all this stuff in somebody's head and you're messed up if you missed a box, but your job is ultimately to help them learn to quickly and effectively master complicated information and to have a questions-based paradigm, then that shifts everything that you do. So yeah, you'll have to teach algebra, and you have to teach reading, and you have to teach spelling, and you have to teach all these things, but you can sort of think of it in the big picture, and that sort of depressurizes it. The second is kind of a tool that you can take or leave. This is not sort of like gospel, you have to do it, but it's like, here's a possibility that might be interesting for you. What we've done with my own children, and what I teach a lot of students in our Navigate course for Unbound, is we call it the deciding forward model. And the idea here is look, I want you to set a goal, any goal, son or daughter. I don't care what the goal is. It can be a really simple goal, it can be a really complicated goal. It's better if it's a simple goal. It might be a goal that I want to learn to fish, right? I want you to then think about that goal, and I want you to commit. What's the next step that I have to take to do that goal? All right, now I want you to execute. I want you to execute that goal, but then here's the twist. Once you've executed, I want you to reflect on that briefly, and I want you to decide if you still want to pursue this goal or if you want to change. If you still want to pursue it, repeat. What's the next step, and do that. If you don't want to pursue it, what would you like to do instead? In other words, you can quit this goal as long as you have another goal in mind, because learning how to quit is actually a pretty important skill. So you might have a kid that says, oh, I love fishing, so the next thing I do is I'm going to learn how to fly fish, and they keep spinning up. But you might have another kid that says, worms, hooks, not for me, man.
I thought that was great, not so sure now.
Right, but I love being on the river, and I'm really interested in snorkeling, or I'm really interested in boats, and then I do some canoeing, and now I'm actually interested in building canoes, and actually I'm interested in building cabinetry, and you can see where that leads. I find that kind of process, asking a student to sort of constantly think about what to do next, it teaches them how to learn information, how to ask questions, how to have that reflective process. It also tends to be the most effective way that I know of to look and say, oh, this kid's gifted in this. These are the set of skills that God's put in them, and that brings that out naturally without as much pain as sort of trying to force that discussion.
All right, that was Jonathan Brush with Unbound. Pretty good insights there.
Yeah, I really like that. We've seen the ads for Unbound on some videos that my kids like to watch online, and but I thought that was great where he talked about evaluating, are you asking good questions or teaching them to ask good questions and giving them skills to find their answers, because we do live in an information world now, and it's so easy to look stuff up, but you have to think critically and know, is this a valid resource? Is this website credible? All that sort of thing.
A couple episodes ago, Rhonda and I were talking about making a transition from a public school approach to a homeschool approach, and how you have to change the way you think about school and what we're doing. And I think this really hits the core, which is the objective of education shouldn't be, I'm going to put a certain set of information in this child's head or mind. That isn't the ultimate objective. That's important.
Yeah.
But to teach your children how to be learners, how to, like you said, think critically, how to find those resources. And then I would add how to communicate those resources effectively, that information effectively, and make decisions. That's really the objective of education. And if you have a different objective, it's going to affect your strategy. How am I going to approach these different things?
Absolutely. And I still think it's beneficial for them to have a core of knowledge, and foundational understanding of lots of different topics. But I'll give you, for instance, when I was teaching public school, I taught high school math. And I had students all the time that would say things like, Mr. Lewis, when am I going to use this? I don't need to know algebra. I don't need to, whatever. And we'd have these conversations. But the thing is, I couldn't give them any real world answers of when they would need it, other than just basic problem solving and logic kind of discussions. We need logic, we need problem solving skills, but when they were going to need to know how to do the FOIL method, or any of those other things, or prime factorization of polynomials and all that kind of stuff, and so we had some interesting questions in that regard. But later on, when I left education and I was in the workforce and working in an engineering field within cellular technology, I began to see the real life application of some of the physics and math background that I had that nobody ever was able to give me, because we have this kind of mantra when in the school system. I was indoctrinated into this. We have this mantra in the school system: you need this to graduate, and it's required for college. And then when you go to college and you leave there and you go back into the school system to teach, what do you tell the students? You tell them exactly what you were told.
Yeah, that's right.
It's interesting, but I think this is a great approach. It sounds like a great option for students.
Well, I just want to share. For Jonathan, who is leading Unbound, their mission is we provide you with tools, community, and experiences that enable you to live an extraordinary life for Christ. And you can earn an accredited bachelor's degree at the same time. You can learn more about this program at beunbound.us. beunbound.us.
Awesome. Well, check that out, guys. And this week we're going to talk about our homeschool tip of the week, which is a continuation from last week. How to, or when deciding to homeschool, take the time to do your research and get all of your questions answered. And we had an article that we mentioned to you guys last week. That's still available. Matthew, why don't you tell them where they can get that?
Yeah, nche.com/top10questions. And that's top 10, TEN for 10. And that's a free download that you can get. We've talked about the first 5 questions last time.
I think so.
And so we're going to talk about the others. And, you're going to have, as we said, uncertainties, fears, a lot of questions. You can find the answers and just take the time to do it. And so hopefully as we go through these, it'll be helpful for you.
Yeah. So we're going to pick up this week then with question number 6, which is, will my children really learn what they need to? And this Unbound discussion really kind of fits in with that, that answer there.
So the answer to that is, maybe.
Maybe. I mean, probably. Maybe not. And can you answer every question the child's going to need when you don't know what direction they're going ultimately, right? And the answer is you can't really.
Right.
But
well,
you can set them up.
On one hand, if we go back to that video and we know that you can teach them to learn anything they need to learn.
Yes. Yeah.
Then I think they'll be ready. But the reason there is some doubt as to the answer to this question is simply because as a parent, you still have the responsibility to execute. Sometimes a homeschool parent just isn't faithful, just doesn't get the job done. And so it's really up to the parent. So the encouraging answer to the question is the homeschool context provides you the opportunity absolutely to allow them to learn everything they need to learn, especially, like you said, referring to the fact that we just want them to learn to be learners. And the homeschool context is perfect for that. But that's still something the parent has to do. So there's no guaranteed outcomes.
Yeah, and I think some frustrated homeschool moms just got their hopes up because you said it's still up to the parent to execute. He did not mean your child. He meant execute your plan. Let's move on, though. Number 7.
Please do, John. Please move on.
Will I be able to find a curriculum that fits our needs and worldview? And the answer to that is resounding.
Yes, that's right.
Absolutely.
So as we've talked about before, we're at this point of the homeschool movement where, it's a gigantic market now. So
yeah, it's huge.
if you want to find a certain kind of curriculum with a certain kind of philosophy or strategy or worldview, you can pretty much find it.
Yeah.
And so that's really encouraging. And another point there to remember is that just because you buy a curriculum or a program or a course doesn't mean you have to do exactly as it says. You are still in the driver's seat. And if you want to say, I'm going to take this program and I'm going to modify it here and there. I'm going to cut this, add this, do whatever. You can customize it for your family and for your students.
Yeah, absolutely. And for your lifestyle, too. I mean, if
that's right.
I know families that, dad works third shift, and so they shift their day. Now, they're going to have to shift back at some point because of the work world, but, I mean, they're able to do it now. And so our next question here is, what are the legal requirements? I know that from Regina and I, when we started looking at this, that was a big deal. We both came from the education world, and so we were worried what are the how does this work? What are the legal requirements? How are we going to keep people from knocking on our door? What happens next? And the Thrive Conference was really helpful for us because we got to go and get there's a session that's offered every year, the first day of the conference on Thursday, about North Carolina homeschool law. So
that's right.
I think that's a great resource for people.
So what we'll do here is I'm just going to read through these 7 main requirements.
Okay.
And you can learn more about them online, but
take notes.
Here are the main things. First is notify the North Carolina Division of Non-Public Education of your intent to operate a school and include your school name and name of chief administrator. And we've talked about how to open your school before. Next, certify that the persons providing the academic instruction hold at least a high school diploma or its equivalent. That's what the North Carolina law requires. Next, maintain attendance records on each student. Also, maintain immunization records on each student. Next, operate on a regular schedule, excluding reasonable holidays and vacations, during at least 9 calendar months of the year. And that doesn't mean all at once, but cumulative. Next, administer a nationally standardized test or other equivalent measurement that measures achievement in the area of English, grammar, reading, spelling, and math to every student each year. And you got to keep that on file in case the Division of Non-Public Education requests that. But we've been talking about that. They have to come to your house to ask for that.
Yeah.
Finally, you should notify the Division of Non-Public Education when you close your school. So that is a full summary of what you have to do for North Carolina, to homeschool in North Carolina.
And my understanding is North Carolina has some of the best homeschool laws out there. There's some states are more strenuous for sure and require more things. So
that's right. Some people have to turn in their whole curriculum for approval ahead of time.
Wow.
They have to send in all of their stuff. Now, some states are even more free, but on comparatively, like you said, we're way on the very friendly homeschool laws. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 9 is, will my children be able to get into college? And I would say that anywhere, if you have the money, honey, they'll take you anywhere at some point. But anyway, what are your thoughts on that, Matthew?
So the answer to that is yes. There's a little bit, of course, depending on how you're doing and preparing. But you'll have the opportunity in your homeschool to create a transcript, just like you would get from your high school, so that you can turn that in with your application to a college. You'll be able to give your child a diploma and provide any other experience that would help them get in. So the good news now is colleges have come to see that homeschool students are excellent college students.
Yeah.
And so now I know quite a number of colleges who have created a section of their recruiting program that's just for homeschoolers. They're looking for homeschoolers now.
Yeah.
So they want them there, and getting into college now for homeschoolers is not an issue at all.
Yeah. And there's always options in your local community colleges and stuff like that, dual enrollment things. We're taking advantage of that right now, and so there's lots of options. And so if you have trouble with grades or SAT scores or any of that sort of thing, you can always get a 2-year associate's degree at your community college by going through the dual enrollment program and then become a transfer student. So there's lots of opportunities.
That's right.
Number 10, Matthew, will my children be prepared for college?
So prepared
versus
is different
able to
than
go.
just get in.
Yeah.
Will they be able to handle it?
Yeah.
And it's true. Sometimes there's a learning curve. If a kid has been, sitting on the couch and not having to turn things in at certain times, there's a different kind of educational experience. Getting into college can be a learning curve. However, especially with homeschool students and the kind of maturity that you can develop there, they're able to walk into those situations with no trouble at all. And handle it. And I think another quote from research to share, it says, homeschool children typically academically outperform their institutional public school peers by 15 to 30 percentile points on standardized academic achievement tests. Now, that is referring to high school tests. But the idea that homeschool students are ready and able to handle the academics is proven out in the way that, again, that colleges are now seeking out those students. And this would be a good time to mention, too, that at the Thrive Homeschool Conference on one of the days, we have the college fair. I mean, there are colleges coming to the homeschool conference just to find those students. And there's quite a variety to find.
And you can also check out Unbound's program if you want more info on their options. We're going to take a look at the trailer that we mentioned to you last week for the new documentary Schoolhouse Rock. So here it is.
I felt like I was ruining them.
If I had to spend all day, every day with my kids, I would go crazy.
I really thought, I am messing it all up.
We did not have a very good view of homeschooling families in general. And so we thought we would never do that to our children.
A lot of people homeschool because they believe their children would get a better academic opportunity at home. I, for one, was a child who was pretty much always just painfully bored in school. I just remember most of school was about how to survive this excruciating boredom. And you couldn't work ahead, you couldn't do anything other than what everybody else was doing. It was like life started when school ended.
Hi, I'm Colleen Kessler, and I am a homeschool mom. I'm Sarah McKenzie.
I'm Christopher Parent.
My name is S.D. Smith.
I'm Dr. Carol Swain.
I'm Andrew Kern.
Andrew Pudewa.
I'm Sam Sorbo.
Robert Bortons.
My name is Rob Brown.
I'm Mike Smith.
My name is Pam Barnhill.
Connie Albers.
Kathy Cool.
My name is Ken Ham.
Ron Osborne.
Scott LaPierre.
Janice Campbell. And we have been homeschooling since the very beginning.
Homeschooling today is much different than homeschooling 20, 30, 40 years ago. There are so many co-ops, so many opportunities for kids to interact with other kids.
That's what the homeschool journey is about. It's about being there with your kids. It's about learning with your children. It's about teaching them the love of learning. It's about understanding who they are and how God made them and what calling does God have on their life.
But recognizing that one of the best ways to help do that today in our particular culture is through homeschooling.
Just to remind you, this new feature-length documentary, Homeschool Rocked, The Homeschool Revolution, examines the incredible growth of homeschooling and why thousands of families across the country are choosing this path for their children's education. The premium streaming release of Homeschool Rocked was launched November 12th, so it is ready to go. You can go to their website and buy tickets for different showings now. And I just want to encourage you to use this particular link to do it, because you can support North Carolinians for Home Education at the same time by going to watch.schoolhouserocked.com/index/NCHE. Again, we'll have that on the website, and you can go to our website for the show, nche.com/the homeschool show, and find the links to the episodes and the notes and things like that. So again, that's watch.schoolhouserocked.com/index/NCHE, and that's where you can purchase tickets to see the documentary and support NCHE.
It looks like a great documentary. I can't wait to see it. Have you seen it yet?
Nope, just clips.
Okay, that's going to be cool. All right. Well, guys, we each week we've mentioned to you that we'd love to have your feedback. We want to know if you have questions or topics that you'd like for us to discuss. You can hit us up on the homeschool show at nche.com, and hopefully your speech impediment won't rub off on me today, because I'm starting to get tongue-tied. Thanks for joining us this week. We're so glad that you did, and we look forward to being with you again next week. If you think this show is helpful or would be helpful to your friends or other people that you know, family members and such, please let them know about the show, let them know about us, and learn how to subscribe to our show as a podcast on YouTube and all those things by visiting nche.com. You can go to nche.com/the homeschool show. And until next week, we want you to keep homeschooling with confidence and joy. We will see you then.